especially thank our board of directors. You know, they're volunteers just like most of the rest of you, and they work so hard, and they do such a good job. And so we had we would have liked a few more people, but we had a really nice evening last night. And Fairway donated the cookies for the event, which was awesome of Fairway, and we thanked them. And there were a lot of wonderful silent auction things lined up here that were all bid on and are all gone now. So anyway, thank you everybody who helped with the pasta bake. That was an awesome thing. And you know what, I don't know his first name, Martin. His last name is Martin. Won the 50-50 raffle, so he won $30 or something like that. Jack? Ray, thank you. Ray Martin was the winner of the 50-50 raffle. Okay, I have a couple things I want to remind you of. The garage sale is coming right up. So Tuesday, 2 weeks from today, will be the members only sale. It'll be June 3rd. It'll be the members only sale. So right after brown bag lunch, everybody's welcome to go out and do special first in shopping of the garage sale. Then Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, the garage sale will be, I believe, 8 to 6, and Saturday, 7 to 1. So don't forget our garage sale. You're still welcome to bring things in anytime we're open, and we'll put them out there in the machine shed. And Kara called and asked me to remind everybody that tomorrow is Great Give Day. So hopefully you know what that is. This is the 3rd year, I think, that we've done this, but it's by the Greater Dubuque Community Foundation. And it's online, but if you don't want to do it online, you can go over and Kara will do it for you. But it's a 24-hour donation to your favorite nonprofit, 501c3, whatever. And last year, I believe the Historical Society made about $5,000, which was really wonderful. But it starts, she told me, in 13 hours it starts. It's for 24 hours. And if you go online to, I wrote it down, greatgiveday.com, really all small, very easy, greatgiveday.com, and you donate. They make kind of a game out of it, and there's sometimes that you can donate. It'll tell you the time, and maybe for 2 hours, everything you donate will be tripled by somebody, or things like that. So there's a lot of, it's very neat, and there's a lot of things. But if you have any questions, Kara's more up on that than I am. So anybody who would like to do that, we would appreciate being your favorite charity tomorrow. I think that's all the announcements that we have for today. I hope I didn't forget anything. So it is my pleasure to introduce our program today. My good friend Lisa Gottschalk is here. You may not see her, but she is here. Today we are welcoming Carolyn Pendray, who is in the Jackson County Historical Society Hall of Fame. She is one of our most outstanding Makokada women ever, and you're going to hear about her life and some of the great things that she did for the people of Iowa. So it's my pleasure to introduce to you Carolyn Pendray.
Well, hello everybody. Thanks for welcoming back to Makokada. You know, I lived in Makokada for many years, and I consider it home. But before I go too far into my time here, I want to go back a little further so that you have some insights into how I became influenced to get into politics. You see, my family was always interested in and participated in activism, service, politics, and encouraged open-mindedness. It may have started with my paternal grandparents, Hugh and Cheney Campbell. They raised 13 children in Henry County, Iowa, where Grandpa Hugh farmed. Now my dad was Thomas Franklin Campbell, and he told me that after child number 13 was born, Grandma Cheney told Papa that he would be taking his slumbers in the parlor because they were not going to be adding to the household anymore. Now farming was their livelihood, but another important thing to them was helping to end slavery. So back in Henry County, my father told me stories of hidden floorboards in Grandma and Grandpa's house that led to tunnels of safety for the slaves who were seeking freedom. That makes us all pretty proud to know that that happened here in Iowa. Now my father, Thomas, he farmed for a few years with my mother, Harriet Emily Dutton, and they raised us kids. But I became a town girl when we moved into Mount Pleasant when I was 9 years old. And my dad was one of the organizers of the Henry County Farmers Mutual Insurance Company. And when I was only 9 years old, my dad was elected to the state senate. None of us could have predicted that 39 years later, his daughter, me, would represent the same district and hold the same seat as he did in the Iowa legislature. Additionally, my mom was a suffragist, and her father served in the House of Representatives. So politics runs deep in my family. Now, like I mentioned, I grew up in Mount Pleasant, where I graduated from high school. After that, I immediately took my teaching exam and got certified and began my teaching career. After 12 years of teaching, I won my very first election as the Henry County School Superintendent. And that was a role that I held for 9 years. I was elected for three-year terms. I loved teaching, and I even taught summer classes at Iowa Wesleyan University in Mount Pleasant. Now in 1920, I married a local retail merchant, Bill Pendray. Now upon my marriage at 39 years old, my occupation became homemaker, because at that time a married woman, even without children, could no longer teach or hold a job outside the home. So after living in Ottumwa, Bill and I moved to Maquoketa in 1923, where Bill managed the local Graham store on Main Street. And I see that the storefront still looks beautiful. And in fact, that tile entrance with the Graham's name is still there, though now it's Maquoketa Brewery. Now I kept busy here, as did many other local Maquoketa women, by being active in local clubs. I was the president of a PEO organization. I was a member of the Daughters of the American Revolution, Business Professional Women, the Outlook Club. I volunteered with the Red Cross, and I was very active in the Congregational Church. I also became chairperson of the Jackson County Democratic Central Committee. Now, by the way, for those of you familiar with the streets here in town, when Bill and I first moved here to Maquoketa, we lived on South Prospect. And then from 1925 to 1951, we lived at 403 West Platte. And for those of you who might know David and Pam Crawford, David's parents bought that house when we sold it in 1951. I didn't sell the house until Bill passed away in 1950. I stayed here one more year, sold the house, and then I moved back to Mount Pleasant. All right, let's get into the politics now. So in August 1920, we women had the right to vote. Now I had several ideas on how I'd like to see things done, so I became really involved with the Democratic Party at the state level. Women were legally allowed to run for the Iowa legislature in 1926, when the word man was removed from the requirements. And I wasted little time, so that was 1926. In 1928, the Democratic Party had no candidates that stepped forward to run for the House or the Senate seats. I thought I'd give it a try. I saw the opportunity and I claimed it. And with my husband Bill's blessing, I ran for office. But it wasn't without controversy and difficulty. During that campaign, a county newspaper, the Maquoketa Excelsior, suggested that only a man, and one who was respected and a safe choice, could be effective working with the all-male legislature. It also alleged that I should be ineligible because I didn't pay property taxes. However, I had friends and supporters at another paper, the Jackson Sentinel, and they set the record straight, citing my participation with various organizations around town, my time as the Henry County Superintendent of Schools, and if it weren't enough that my darling Bill was paying property taxes at our home here in Maquoketa, they also reminded readers that I personally owned a farm, for which I indeed paid property taxes. Well, by now you know that I won that election. Not only was I the first woman elected to the state legislature, I was the first Democrat representative elected from Jackson County in more than a decade. Now that day in January 1929, my entering the Iowa House of Representatives as an elected member of the body ended an era. It was no longer an exclusive men's club when the chief clerk of the House swore me into office. Now I was re-elected to the House of Representatives and served 2 full terms. Then I ran for state senate and won 2 terms there. A funny story I was told about my first senate victory. My opponent was the Baldwin businessman, and he was a banker and a farmer. His name was George Washington Tabor, who was confident he would win re-election to a Senate seat. He did not win. It apparently took him, from what I'm told, even by his great-grandson, I am told that it took him nearly a week to come out of his house as he was humiliated after being beaten in this election by a woman. Now, does anyone here know who George Washington Tabor's grandson might be? Roger Tabor Stewart. That's right. Another banker, businessman, and former politician. Now, some have wondered if my darling Bill really thought about what he really thought about my political aspirations and political career. He truly did support me in every way. And when he helped move me to Des Moines and helped me get settled, the press couldn't wait to hear what he thought about his wife moving hours away to tackle what supposedly was a man's world. To quote the published article, "Of course I am proud of her. I recognize the fact that it is a big honor to be the first woman in the legislature. Men have got to come to it. Women are going to get into politics. They have been political minded always. Just look at how they get what they want from us men." He also suggested that perhaps I should be put on a budget committee. To quote Bill again, "She worked for me once in the store for a couple of weeks. During those weeks, she always ended the day with more money than she had taken in sales slips." Okay, so I was the first woman in the Iowa House of Representatives, where I served from 29 to 33. I was also the first woman to preside over the Senate. I was the first woman to chair committees. I was the first legislator to be asked to address the Des Moines National Association of Colored People. And I was the first woman in the United States to be elected to any state senate. Now, as proud as I am of those accomplishments and the terms that I served, what really matters are some of the things that I got behind and we pushed through as far as laws. So getting lobbyists behind roped areas during sessions. One of the first things that I found out then when I got to the State House was that lobbyists sat elbow to elbow with their representative. When it was time to vote, they would discuss it together, and the lobbyists would influence greatly how those votes went. So there were more Republicans in the House at that time than there were Democrats, but it wasn't hard to get this pushed through. And the lobbyists were still in the room when votes took place, but they no longer could sit side by side with their legislator, and they were in a roped area. They got to see the vote, but not actively participate in it. Seems pretty crazy today to think that there was that much of a connection when votes were taking place. All right, another thing that I was able to pass, I was the author of this bill, and it was supported by most of the men. It didn't pass with unanimously, but it certainly passed with the majority, and that was to give women the head of household rights. At that time, if a woman's husband passed away, none of his assets were left to her. The law stated that all the assets would go to the next in line male relative. Could have been a nephew, could have been a brother, but it was never the wife. The best we could do was ensure that a woman got to keep her sewing machine, because women could sew and earn a little money, and she could keep $50 worth of chickens. But at least she had something before. There was nothing that was left to her legally when a husband would pass away, or sometimes even just leave the family on their own. Education, which of course was always near and dear to my heart. At that time, not all the schools even had books, and we were able to pass laws so that every school, the county schools, rural, city schools, it didn't matter. All schools now would start receiving free books for all schools, and there was better pay for teachers. And of course, when, let's see, 2 years after I was elected to the legislature, another woman joined me. Her name was Ava Garner. And Ava and I wrote and got passed the child labor laws got changed in Iowa. Before that, children, well, there was no incentive really for them to even go to school. A lot of people, I mean, it was the Great Depression, you have to remember. But there was nothing keeping even 14-year-olds working 12-hour shifts 6 days a week in factories. What we were able to do, at least, was say that they no longer can work the night shift. There were hundreds of children working 7 p.m. to 7 a.m. every day, 6 nights a week. So we got, we updated child labor laws so that children younger than 14 were limited on their hours that they had to work. And also we limited that they could not work night shifts. And there was a third thing. I think it was just limiting the number of hours that they worked in any given week. After the child labor laws went into effect, it took a few years, but we did see an increase in students going to school. You know, there was a lot of young men, usually, who never even had the opportunity to go to school. Now with the child labor laws being updated and improved, at least they had the opportunity to get to school, at least for part of the year, except maybe when it was harvest time. All right, so you can see the only thing I have in common really with Carolyn is I found some $8 pearls that I put on. But Carolyn was born in December 9th, 1881. She died in 1958. Her husband Bill died in 1950. He also was about 8 years older than Carolyn. And after Bill died, then Carolyn sold their house here and she moved back to Mount Pleasant in 1951, where she lived until she died in 1958. She was 76 years old and she's buried in Mount Pleasant. So I probably should have prepared more. I didn't realize, or I talked fast. But that concludes Carolyn. So it's quite a hidden gem that we have right here in Jackson County. I mean, first female legislator, first woman elected to the Senate. I mean, it's amazing. And I'll be honest, until about 5 years ago when Bonnie asked me to prepare for the Pioneer Supper and present this program, I knew nothing of Carolyn Pendray. It was really fun when I started doing some investigating to learn more about her. I contacted, you know, the Henry County Historical Society and, you know, Mount Pleasant and Iowa Wesleyan University. Then I checked with University of Iowa, like the Women's History Resource Area, where Carolyn is actually inducted into that the Iowa Hall of Fame as well. And, you know, kept gathering a little bit here and a little bit there. And somewhere along the line, somebody mentioned that they thought Carolyn's niece might still be alive and living in Burlington. So I started investigating more, and I found Barbara McRoberts, who indeed is Carolyn's niece. She came up here to Maquoketa and spent 2 days with my husband and I. She was 90 years old. She drove up here. I'm like, you know, Barbara, I'm happy to come down to Burlington if you want to visit. Oh no, she says, I want to come back up to Maquoketa because I spent a lot of time on Platt Street visiting Aunt Caddy. She said the whole family didn't call her Carolyn, everybody called her Aunt Caddy, C-A-D-D-I-E. So anyway, I got to meet Barbara, and as it turns out, Barbara's mom, Carolyn's sister, was Barbara's secretary and clerk out in Des Moines, all of her terms. And so Barbara, as a little girl, oftentimes would go out to Des Moines with them. And so she saw firsthand the apartment where Carolyn lived. She remembers the car rides, riding in the little rumble seat, going to Des Moines. So anyway, it was really, really fun. And Barbara is still alive and well. She's 95 now, and she still lives in Burlington, living on her own. Yeah. So I gained a friend out of that research.
She came here.
Yes, she came here. Yeah, we brought her here. We went to Dave and Pam Crawford's house because Dave's parents had bought Carolyn and Bill's house here in town. So we went through some of that history, and if you know Pam, she's like a historical buff. It was just amazing. We went down in their basement. It was like walking into a museum. Yeah, and we walked around Platt Street, and I don't think the house was there anymore. I don't know what was there. What did I say? 403 Platt. But and maybe somebody here can help with this. But one thing that Barbara told me, that as a kid, somebody on Platt Street, or right in that area, had a goldfish pond in their yard. And she said that she loved to go to that yard and play. Nobody remembers a goldfish pond, do they? Yeah. So are there any questions?
Did she have children?
No. Carolyn and Bill never had a family, never had children. Carolyn was 39 when they got married, and Bill was 47. And just think, what blows my mind is just, I mean, how times have changed. But, you know, she had this wonderful career, had been superintendent of schools for Henry County, and the day she got married, she no longer could work. I'm so glad things changed. It's yeah, just truly hard to imagine, isn't it?
When did she get married?
Well, she was 39, and she was born in 81. So you do the math. Math is hard. Math is very hard.
Especially
with the microphone and everybody looking at me. Math is hard.
Did she help her husband at the store then maybe? Or?
Only when he had to go away on business. She covered on those days. Otherwise, she stayed very, very active in a lot of organizations. And like the PEO organization was really big back then, and she was president for quite a few years. Yes?
But you said her daughter, or her sister was her secretary clerk or whatever. Was she also the only woman clerk at the Senate?
No, there were
other women.
Other women who were clerks. And Carolyn Carolyn had more than just this one sister too. Carolyn, I believe that there were 5 children in the family. There were 3 girls and 2 boys. And Carolyn was the youngest. Yes?
Who ran the Graham store after like Bill died and that? Do you know, like, they were still open into the 70s.
Right. Does anybody know who ran the Graham's store after Bill Pendray passed away? Because it stayed open.
I remember there was a family, I think his name was Barton.
Barton?
They raised some nephews that were Hopkins, but I think Mr. Barton was the manager.
Okay.
At least in the 50s.
Well, that helps.
Early 50s.
Then Mr. Barton took over in the 50s.
They lived on 2nd Street.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get too far into that research, mostly because I got so wrapped up meeting with Barbara McRoberts when she came up from Burlington that we mostly talked about Aunt Caddy.
So I was pleased because she actually was installed in the Jackson County Historical Society before she became a
state.
member of the State Historical.
Wow, how about
Oh,
Jackson County? Way to go.
Right?
So for those that may not have heard, Bonnie just said she was actually installed as a Hall of Famer here in Jackson County before she was at the Iowa Hall of Fame. So that's great. Yeah. Yeah, she was a lady, certainly ahead of times for the most part. And one of the things that was written about her, which I think is, we probably would almost guess this, even without reading it, was a description. It said, Carolyn Campbell Pendray was a strong, resolute woman who rarely backed away from a fight. And I'm sure she had plenty of things she had to battle throughout her career. Well, thank you, everyone. I'll be here a while if anybody has questions, but I don't know how much more I know. Sort of exhausted my knowledge.
Are there any books about her that you know of?
There are none that I'm aware of.
Okay, I don't know of any.
There's a pretty nice Wikipedia page, actually. And then, just a search online and you can find more information out. But it is pretty amazing. Almost all the articles just say the same thing in a different way. You don't really learn. If you read one, you're going to learn 90% of it. Yes.
Now you have to tell us where your outfit came from. That's
Oh,
a very nice outfit.
Amazon. My mother-in-law. This is my mother-in-law. It was my mother-in-law's, so. And it's very hot and scratchy. In case anybody's wondering. It might be up for sale. I think it's called seal fur,
Oh, okay.
which is outlawed in the States now. You can still wear it, but you will never find or buy another item that's from seal fur. I took it to Romberg's to have it relined and cleaned after my mother-in-law passed away. Then they said, "Oh, seal fur, you won't be getting another one of those." I'm like, why? It's illegal. Okay.
That does make the outfit though.
Oh, thank you.
It's really cool.
So my scratchy neck and my little sweat pockets underneath, it's all worth it.
Yes.
Perfect. All right, well, I'm going to turn this microphone off, but truly, if anybody has questions, I'll send you to Bonnie.